German climate pavilion at COP29 in Baku. Germany. Climate solutions, fast and fair.
Good morning, everyone. Guten Morgen. Thank you for being here today in the Germany Pavilion. We are going to start our event that is called Unpacking the Just Transition. And we are going to talk about the key elements that are making this just transition something real. We will have a very packed agenda today, so I will ask all the panelists in advance to be very brief but concise in the topics that they are going to discuss. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm DianaJunquera. I'm the co-director for the Just Transition Center in ITUC. And I would like to start giving you a warm welcome and giving the first opening introduction words. I would like to invite to the stage to our Deputy General Secretary, EricManzi, that he is going to provide some key welcome input. So please, Eric, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Good morning, good morgen. I think I pronounce well. Yes, good. Yes, yeah. My name is EricManzi. I'm the Deputy General Secretary of ITUC. ITUC is the global organization of trade union. We actually have 200 million members, and we are happy to be here. And I would like just to say thank you very much for the organizers to organize this important discussion on just transition. We know as well how the just transition is very important, and now we talk about the just transition work program is very more concrete, and I think this discussion can have us an overall topic or what is the situation now and what we are going to do in the future in terms of to be more concrete, because we can't continue like to talk, to discuss, but do nothing. So in this, thank you very much for the DGB to organize this event and to invite ITUC to participate. So Diana, I think at this stage, on the interest of the time, we are going just to open officially this event. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Eric. Thanks a lot. So now I would like to ask the technicians to help us producing the video that we have from StefanKörzell, that he is a member of the executive board of the German Trade Union Confederation, DGB.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I would like to welcome to today's event of the Just Transition Center and the German Trade Union Confederation here at the German Pavilion. Due to commitments in Berlin, I'm unable to join you today in person, but I'm sending you warm greetings from Germany. First, I would like to thank the Foreign Office and the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development for providing a space for non-state actors. The international exchange here in recent years has always been valuable and has added valuable perspectives to the international climate debate. The German trade unions are engaged here and today, and will continue to be so in the future, to be active partners in the transition. Today, we would like to explore what the words just transition transition mean, and take a look at the Just Transition Work Program and where it stands today. We are living in a time of shifting geopolitical dynamics and increasing uncertainty. Concerns about economic and social progress in our societies are noticeably increasing. This brings existential questions into the focus, such as those about living standards, viability, and future viability of entire regions. To counter these challenges, we need a clear and reliable political path for companies, for regions, and for workers. A reliable framework must provide answers on how to reduce dependency on fossil fuels, strengthen economic and democratic participation, and promote fair distribution within our societies, as well as between the global north and the global south. One thing is certain: without a clear focus on the world of labor and the role of workers in the transition, we won't succeed. We need to address the question as to how we can create meaningful perspectives with and for workers. One prerequisite are human rights, labor rights, and a good social protection. A true just transition can improve working and living conditions for people across the world. This fosters acceptance and enables the necessary rapid modernization towards climate neutrality. We are committed to ensuring that this takes center stage in the negotiations around the work program, and will also be included in the update of the national climate contributions, the national determined contributions. On top of that, we would like to talk about all this today. I wish you all a very fruitful exchange, deep insights, and Glück auf, as we say.
Perfect. So now with the speech from Stefan, he has already set up the keys for this panel, so that will help us to introduce the big discussion. So now I would like to invite to the stage to JochenFlasbarth. Sorry for my mispronunciation. He is the State Secretary of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany. So please join us in the stage. He is the key speaker, and he is going to give us some keynotes about how this transition is going on in Germany. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Wonderful to be here. I just chatted a bit with Frederik, and we thought back. I think it's the first kind of side event of DGB together with our friends from ITUC was back in Bonn at the so-called Fiji COP in Bonn, 2017, bringing the focus on just transition to a broader audience. And for us, at the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, it's a key issue for our overall development cooperation. But to those who don't know it, I did my whole life environment, and 3 years ago I moved from environment to development. And of course, if you're dealing with environment, the focus is environment, is climate. But already at that time, our minister Svenja Schulze and me, we were of the view, and we were convinced, you cannot organize this tremendous transformational processes in the world without having the focus on just transition. And that was in a nutshell what was said in 2015, when we in parallel decided on the Paris Agreement, but also a couple of weeks before in New York on the 2030 agenda, to leave no one behind. And so we organized over the last year exactly those processes, focusing on the overall debate, how to organize just transition processes, but we also did this in our concrete bilateral cooperation with those countries sitting in situations with such kind of tremendous transformational processes. Just to name one is the Just Energy Transition partnership we have with South Africa, with a huge dependency on coal. And as I'm coming from a coal country and as a social democrat, I know what I'm talking about. These are not easy processes in countries where we, for very good reasons, for the best reasons you can imagine, have the trade unions with a word to say, but still you need to realize the way we did our economy in the past will not the way we will have to organize it in the future. And what is happening now in South Africa is really something that should be highly respected. What we did there is to support the government in transforming their energy legislation, basically with allowing non-discriminatory access of electricity producers to the grid, which is good for all who are doing renewable energy, because now you have a business case and wind parks and solar parks don't need a ODA cent at all. They are business cases, but of course it's the beginning of the end of the coal industry in South Africa. And that the president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, holds a hand over the whole process is something I really appreciate and respect a lot. And he brought all the legislation through the second chamber of the parliament just a few days before the elections. Everybody can ask himself whether this would happen at our own countries. I would say, Frederik, maybe not in Germany. And this is something that really works. And now you see that the new jobs are coming in. And this is something I want to underscore. And as I see Ingrid from GIZ, yesterday we had an event on looking not just on the side of how transition jobs from the old world into the new world, that was a focus in the past, and rightly so, and it needs to be a focus also in the future. But there are also more opportunities. And with the findings from Boston, I think, Boston Consulting, we saw that if we do not invest in skilling peoples, we risk 0.1 degrees in global warming, because simply the workers, the skilled workers, are not in place where we need them for the new industries. And that this is not just something abstract, that this is not something like a theory. I saw just recently when I visited Namibia, there we will see huge investments in the production of green hydrogen. And this has multiple benefits for transforming our industries and creating new industries. And I just will explain it in a few words. The Namibian example is such a good one because, number one, it's driven by national politics. It was the idea of the former president of Namibia to make renewable electricity and the derivatives from green hydrogen the new business case for their national economy. So what they do is they will establish huge wind and solar parks in the region who knows Namibia a bit south of Lüderitz, the former mining areas for diamonds and others. And there they will produce the green hydrogen. And it is not something that drives Namibia in a fossil lock-in, because they have this huge potential to produce green hydrogen to feed into, for example, the steel industry in Germany, in other parts of Europe, in other regions of the world. So it is the key to hold our very well-established industries, but with another fueling, and at the same time, just for the first few years, they will establish in a region like the south of Namibia 15,000 new jobs. 15,000 new jobs to establish the parks and 3,000 constant jobs thereafter. And that is the point where the 0.1 degrees from the Boston consulting study comes in. Now we have to organize together, or we have to help Namibia to organize this process, that these people will have decent jobs, that they are well paid, and that they have proper housing in a city where already now you have a lot of informal settlements. So what we do not want is that the global Energiewende is combined with pictures and realities, more than that, of more informal settlements, leaving people in living conditions that nobody wants to live in. And these are the potentials of the global climate transformation. But it is more than that, and that will be my last example, because I saw it the first time in the briefing for this meeting. And that are nature-based solutions as tool for climate change policies. Nature-based solutions have a huge potential, and honestly, I never thought it through the lenses of decent jobs. But of course, it is not forgiven if you work for nature-based solutions, that is restoration of degraded forest landscapes, that this will create decent jobs. Yes, it will create jobs, but also you need here a lot of skills. And in another context, I said every idiot can plant a tree, but to restore degraded landscape, you need skilled people, and of course you have to provide them with good working conditions and fair salaries. So, my dear colleagues, again, congratulations to DGB, to ITUC, also to ILO, and also to you, Ingrid, to GIZ, for all the collaborative work you are organizing around that. I think we are much far, we got much further than we thought a couple of years ago. Everybody understood that jobs have to be in the core also of the incoming NDC process in the NDC 3.0. Jobs, decent jobs, have to have an appropriate place in these NDCs and in the overall climate debate. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. I was planning to make you a follow-up question because we still have minutes. Sorry for the attack. But we would like to know what are you expecting? What is BMC expecting out of this COP?
Well, of course, in the center, everybody can observe it. It's a finance issue, and I saw many COPs, but very few with such a huge gap between what is expected and what can be delivered, even if everybody is in the best position and the best will to deliver. And there are some misunderstandings. Of course, I mean, some might know me. I never advocated that the old industrialized countries should not take their responsibility. I worked a lot that we organize more financing to allow our partners in the Global South to catch up and to organize that transformation. But if there is a view that all the huge numbers that are around there, the 2.4 billion until 2030 annually, can come from national budgets, from taxpayer monies. This is an illusion. It will not happen. All the budgets are under threat, so we have to be smarter. We have to use the budget money to leverage it, to get responsible entrepreneurs and investments into place, so that the climate-friendly and at the end the climate-neutral economy is a new normal and is not something that constantly has to be subsidized.
Thank you very much. Let's hope that this becomes a reality and that we can see it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, we are perfectly on time. So now I would like to ask our colleague PatrickRondeau. He's the advisor on climate and just transition in FTQ in Quebec to join us to let us know how is the Just Transition Work Program going on. So I think that it's better if we take a seat and yeah. So good morning, Patrick. How are you doing?
Diana.
Okay, I would like to start. I think that it's better if instead of you just give us a speech, we can make a kind of interview. So I would like to know, where are we right now? Where is exactly the latest outcomes of the Just Transition Work Program?
The state of play. It's not going well. Almost not doing well at all. The thing is that we are in the same situation that we have been for the last, I think, 2 years since the adoption of the Just Transition Work Program, meaning that you have a huge gap between developing and developed countries. On one side, from the developing countries, and it's coming from years earlier than that. It's the view that they have is that the just part of just transition will come through means of implementation and climate finance. So as long as developed countries are contributing financially to the developing countries as at a very, respectable height, they will be able to do a just transition. But the thing is that by doing so, this just transition passes through only finance. And it's the finance aspect that is just, and not specifically what developed countries are expecting from the Just Transition Work Program, being about human rights, labor rights, social dialogue, social protection, and so on. So that is the gap where they are right now. And the thing is that developing countries want to have a very practical outcomes of the Just Transition Work Program, meaning a work plan, for example, with activities throughout and a timeline. And on the other side, developed countries, since they don't want to open this kind of climate finance, just want to have spaces of dialogues on just transition. So we don't have any landing zone for the Just Transition Work Program.
Okay, so we could say that both positions are a bit far right now. And what are the trade union demands? Where exactly we with our demands?
We're asking power to the workers, but nonetheless, what we're asking is both sides of this coin. As a matter of fact, we're asking for climate finance on international cooperation. So we totally agree that developing countries need that money to do an actual just transition. But at the same time, the very principle of climate justice, climate finance, is that the recipient of the money has to use this money for actual understood priorities. So on this level, we totally agree on the means of implementation, but it has to be with workers' rights, it has to be with social dialogue policies, it has to be with workers actually at the table, it has to be with social protection, and not just reducing the just on the finance bubble. And on the other side, we're asking the same thing as developed countries on all those issues which are very related to the International Labour Organization guidelines of just transition, but with the responsibility to act on climate finance at the same time. So we're asking both sides of the coins, and mostly we're asking for actionable outcomes of this work program, meaning that we have to have mechanisms, policies on just transition that are included in the NDCs of each countries with accountability on their action on just transition.
It's very simple what we are asking for.
Very quite simple.
Nothing. It's just, the basics of a just transition. And
yes.
For us to call it just, it has to include all what you are mentioning. Yeah. So you already say that we are now in different, very far positions. Is there any other conflict that you can see that is right now in the spot?
I think parties will find a balance between these climate finance issues and the just transition under the ILO guidelines. What they will not find a balance or answer on is the actionable outcome that we need of this just transition work program, and most likely it will go in the direction of being just dialogues, which we do not want. So that is why we have to push back as union, as trade unions, as other constituency, as a matter of fact, that support just transition, to be sure that we have actionable outcomes. So let's see.
Okay, so this is what we want, but what do you think that we will get, or how far do you think that we will be, that we will arrive?
I think from my point of view that we will have some kind of balance between key elements of the just transition, meaning the reference to labor rights, to social dialogue, to social protection, decent work, creation of decent work, and at the same time have some kind of language on international cooperation. But it's kind of tricky because those discussions on international cooperation are mostly the same that we have in the NCQG, in the new collective quantified goal that we have in this actual COP, which means that at some point we have to consider just transition inside the NCQG. So it's kind of difficult to see where it's going to land, because this specific COP has an interrelation between all the agendas, which is not always the case in COP, but in this actual one, since it's on finance, you can see quite clearly the interlinkage between those agendas. So I think you will find some kind of balance on that, but I think it's going to be very difficult to have this very practical outcomes, and that we're going to push it back to the next exhibition session in Bonn in June on consideration for an expert dialogue once again.
Yeah, so clearly what we want is to have the very practical things in the Just Transition Work Program. Let's see if we manage and it's not diluted in the different places, commissions and so on. But what is very clear is the union demands, where are we? That we are still a bit far, but it's still 1 week to go. So we'll see, let's be positive and let's see what we get. So thank you very much, Patrick, for giving us all these inputs.
You're very welcome, a pleasure, and thank DGB for the invitation. And unfortunately, I have to run since the negotiation on Just Transition Work Program is happening right now.
Don't worry, we are all running all the time. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Leave it. Thank you. Okay, so I can't believe it, but we are ahead of schedule. So so we will have a bit of time for a bit more time for the next panel. So I would like to invite here with me the next panel, the next speakers. That now we are going to have a discussion on how we can make this just transition real, how we can unpack all these inputs that we are hearing, listening, and what are going to be the key elements for this just transition. So I would like to invite here with me to FrederikMoch, that he is the Director of the Structural Industry and Service Policy Department at the German Trade Union Confederation, DGB. So please, Frederik, join us. I would like also to invite Ingrid-GabrielaHoven, that she has been mentioned before. Thank you and welcome. She is the Managing Director at GIZ in Germany. And I would also like to invite again our Deputy General Secretary, EricManzi, from the ITUC, to join us. So, okay, thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. So I would like to start asking to all of you is generic question, but I guess that you will be able to respond from different aspects. What or how would you describe the current state of all this process of the transformation that we are living? And I think that maybe, Ingrid, you can respond like in general terms, and maybe Frederik more talking about the national topic in Germany, and maybe Eric can give us a global perspective, a global overview. So yeah, maybe Eric? Yeah, let's start with global in general.
Yes, in general, what we can say is what's happened is at global level, at internationally, what is the status now is the fact, which is clear, there is a growing of the recognition of the just transition, the role of the just transition on climate action. That's a very important thing. The second is the fact that more concretely, we have the Just Transition Working Program, which recognized the labor rights, social protection, social dialogue is the element for us very, very important. That's, I can say, the positive things. But another side, we have what we can say is not very positive, is the fact now how to implement it. That's the question. I think my predecessor told us that we still have the problem also to finance the just transition, especially the just transition working program. But the second also is to take in account what I can say, the global fear, especially come from the global south, where they have some fear about the green economy, the sustainability of the job in green economy, the perception that this green action can be unjust and not fair due to the international system. So it's also what we need to consider at global level. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. So yeah, maybe Ingrid, you can comment.
Yeah, well, I think that what we have as a practitioner, I mean, GIZ is working, implementing in the field. We were so happy when this Just Transition Work Program was actually agreed upon at the last COP. In practice, of course, we recognize that formally we thought it's about a just transition perhaps from getting out of coal. So it's like limited in terms of which kind of labor is affected, which region is going to be impacted by the transition. We have to recognize when you look what we have to transform, it's actually about the transformation of the whole real economy, about society. So actually the challenge is much more complex. We see the numbers from UNEP. We are running out of time. We have the first year with 1.5 degree global warming. This is frightening because it really impacts especially least developed countries, poor people, small islands, development states. So we have to fasten action on the ground. At the same time, we know that in getting like the social umbrella in place to deal with the, so to say, also flip sides of the transformation, this requires more time and especially requires additional funding, which won't come from climate finance, quite frankly. We have a financing gap at that time. No? So we have funds that deal with specific mitigation issue, adaptation issue, loss and damage, which covers partially social aspects. But when it comes, for instance, to a point like building up a social security system that would provide decent coverage for a couple of things, I mean, this has to come from different kind of sources, and nobody has thought about how do we align those different challenges that we have to address. So I think what is troubling us is really that we have to find better ways with the complexity of the transformation, because this lies ahead of us. And we have also to make sure that we have, as has been said previously by Patrick, that when we embark on such a transformation, it won't be successful unless we have a big consensus within society, between the different sectors, and certainly, and this is my last sentence, what we have seen over the last couple of months, actually we have a deficit of trust among actors, also at the international level, to be quite honest with you, and unless we find a way to rebuild this trust, it will be difficult really to embark on such a complex process.
You are totally right. But for all this, I'm afraid that we will need time, and it's a time that we don't have because we are running out late. So we'll see. So you, Frederick, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Diana, and hello also from my side. Well, I think that we have to recognize that we are living in times of crisis and times which have a high level of uncertainty, and people are afraid of the future. So they don't go forward and say, well, a good future is coming, because I think the political framework, for example, in Germany is not very stable at the moment. So our government has gone away, more or less. And one key point was that they didn't find a common approach how to organize the state budget. And one small point of this struggle was also climate finance. It was just one small part of it, but I want to underline that in these times of crisis where people in Germany are getting more and more afraid if their jobs are safe, this whole idea of a just transition gets a bit broken. So the trade unions promoted it for a long time, and we achieved great efforts when I come to the Coal Commission, for example, and the coal phase out is a really good approach and example of how to organize a just transition. But now, after Corona pandemic, after the energy crisis, we have seen in Germany that we lost around 10% of our GDP due to the high energy costs. So we have a big loss of production in the industry, and people working in the industry are afraid. And the point was, we thought that we see big investments now into green tech in the next years, but businesses are hesitating due to the framework. People are not sure, the workers are not sure in which part of economy they will work possibly in the next years. So they are not able to think about retraining measures, for example, because they do not know if the green steel will come or not. And it's important that we stabilize this situation. It is important that we think about how to organize the political framework to support the businesses, on the one hand, that they are able to invest into green technologies, and to support the workers, that they are able to build up a good future on a clear plan what's going on. And this means, for example, decent working conditions. My last point. So we've seen great effort in Germany as well. For example, a big car company has settled to Germany. One guy who is now very famous in the new Trump administration. And this guy is a union buster. He produces green cars, but on the other hand, he doesn't want to work together with unions. He has no idea of a just transition, and this is also what is happening. So I think we have to have a clear analysis of the situation and I can underline what Ingrid said before. It is really important that we stabilize the situation, that we create trust, so that people think that the future will be a good future and a green future.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You have mentioned a lot of things, a lot of details, very bit negative picture, let's say, but it's the reality, is what we are facing. But I would like, my next question was about the obstacles that we find. You have mentioned few of them, but I would like to focus more on what is the main obstacle that we can find in order to integrate the climate policies within the labor work, and how the unions can be closer to the climate policies. Yeah, please. Yeah, Ingrid.
I think that in the past, I think we didn't realize that it's not just, I mean, that the climate policy is not about like simply introducing CO2 pricing or new technologies. I think in the very beginning of the climate process, we didn't really see the impact on people that much, besides actually dealing with adaptation. But if you have to transform, and this is the climate transformation, is a transformation of the whole economy. It affects all sectors, not only perhaps the energy sector. And therefore, I think one has to realize this has, of course, impacts on the labor market. If you change your mobility system, you change your health system. And we have two factors. It's not only about the climate transformation, net zero, decarbonization. It's also at the same time, all countries have to deal with digitalization, which again offers opportunities, but also is a challenge for the labor market. So we have two big trends we have to deal with. So how do we get actually, how do we know what kind of impact and opportunity this has for the labor market? In many countries, we lack data, we lack the right analysis, at least when we take a medium and longer term perspective. And this is necessary to really figure out where is the most impactful transition already happening? How can I help people to gain their livelihoods? What is it? Is it a social protection system? Is it a skilling, an upskilling, a retraining program? And there we have two challenges at the same time. There might be new opportunities because new industries emerge. But within the old industries, for instance, take the car industry in Germany. They also have to transform their workers. They have to be reskilled because the type of cars are being changed. And some qualifications that were quite necessary in the past is for e-mobility not further so key, but they need a different kind of skill. So again, also within the industries, a lot of change is taking place, and we have to anticipate this, bring the private sector in. They have to have skin in the game. They have to share the burden of this transition. This is my view. This can not only be done by public funding, but I think this is key. We have to bring the labor market impact more forcefully into the debate at the national level. But let me perhaps add another thing, and this is again from South Africa, and Jochen didn't have the chance really to give also a broader insight on the macro level. But when we discussed the Just Transition South Africa quite recently with the finance ministry, they really recognized, look, if I want really to get to net zero, it's not only about the coal mining regions. I have to transform the whole financial system. I have to deal with subsidies to reduce my carbon footprint, because there are subsidies that may not be advantageous for a climate-friendly and climate-resilient society. I have to build up the right incentives for those new industries so that they can speed up their business. So it's really a system change that we have to establish and we have to deal with. And to make this really the transition fair, I think we have to make sure that we don't forget. We entered into this big process after a time where actually many economies were down. Social systems were overburdened by COVID-19. We have, when you look into the inequality indicators, inequality is on the rise since COVID-19. So we are embarking on a very big transformation at a time where actually there is actually depletion of public funding, we have an increase in inequality, and people are struggling to gain their livelihoods. So, I mean, at the same time, we can't simply rearrange all the systems simply through the climate process. Some other kind of domestic policy has to put in place to create a system of fairness, of solidarity. And then you have more chances really to bring people on board for the new challenges that lie ahead of us. I come back to this later.
Yes, thank you. We still have some time. So with all these topics that you are mentioning, these obstacles, we also have to include the geopolitical issues, the problems that we are facing, what is happening now in Germany, in the government of Germany. So there are so many things going around and in the middle of this big transformation. So how can we ensure that this transformation is going to happen in a just way? And how can we be really sure that we will be there and that we will not be lag behind?
Yeah, I mean, lots of things to this point had been discussed before, but what I would like to underline is that if we have a good analysis on the social impacts, we are able to find a good solution how to manage it. And in the world of work, the trade unions are promoting that it is a good idea to negotiate collective agreements on these topics. So we have lots of good examples in Germany where the transition of a sector, the transition of a company is the key issue of a collective agreement. And for example, retraining measures are negotiated, or future investments in a company are negotiated in these collective agreements between the trade unions and companies. And from our point of view, it is important that we have the right political framework to stabilize this situation so that we are able to move forward and to find good answers. And if people trust in this development, they support also the change. But if they do not have trust and if they don't see a perspective for themselves, it is not easy to go this way forward. And look, in most of the industrialized countries in the global north, we see the rise of the far right, and people which are close to labor unions are also influenced by this. And I think this is a point we have to mention if we want to find good answers for the transition of our economy. If we lose the people, we lose the game of our future. Yeah, that's the point. And I don't want to be so pessimistic, because I think we have clear answers how to deal with this. It's about investments, it's about decent jobs, and it's about a reliable perspective to the people. But if I speak from the German perspective now, if people just see that the political arena is just struggling with themselves, didn't find reliable answers, how to manage budget problems, how to manage future issues, they give up.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, for sure we need that trust among ourselves, but trust in the process as well, trust in the politicians, in the politics, that this is a personal opinion, but in my perspective, I think that this should be, they should produce long-term energy plans, long-term industrial policy plans, because with that, everyone will know how to move forward. If we will have long-term plans, companies will be ready to invest, workers will be happy because they will know about their future. So that could bring us a brighter perspective of the future. But I would like to ask you, Eric, as a unionist, how do you see that this just transition can be something real? How can we make this happen in a reality with the demands that we have as unions, that we have been hearing before from Patrick, what is the just transition for us? How do you think that we can make this real?
I think the first, as Stefan said in the opening remarks, we can't succeed without workers. So the first is to involve the workers in all the discussion during the elaboration of the plan, etc. That's the first thing. The social dialogue, to be sure that everywhere, maybe depending on the country, depending on the different continent, is very different. We have the country where they involve the workers in the discussion, but another country not. If you take the example of, especially in Global South, some government try every time to avoid the discussion with the workers, the trade unions. That's the first step, if you want to have a real just transition. The second is to have a concrete plan, to develop the plan. It's not only the speech, it's only to talk, no. You need to have the plan, and it's the second point. The third point, to finance. It's a plan, we must to fund it. So how to do? That's why we are here. We are here to push in this scope, in terms of to see how we can have, how the developed country can provide finance to the global south. That's the second thing. And the third is to be more practical. I appreciate the work done by the Just Transition Center. Is more practical, different country, to have a real just transition work program, including all social partners, but especially to strengthen the capacity of the workers. And the last point, the last point is to understand that really we need to have a world where, if you say we have the climate justice, we need to have a system which is equal and fair, and they discuss among ourselves across the world. I think for us is the point we can do, and to be sure that in Just Transition we mention clearly, we work on the labor rights. The social protection is the 2 points, is for me very important in the different Just Transition working program. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Exactly. I will summarize it as to walk the talk. It's not only just blah, blah, blah. It's to make that happen really. And what we call as just. Just means workers, means including people. So yeah, thanks. Frederick, you want to add something?
I totally agree with what Eric said, and as I don't want to be the angry, pessimistic guy from Germany, I want to underline one important point. So it's also necessary that we share good examples, and we do have good examples all over the world, showing how it is possible to manage this transition in a decent and successful way. I mentioned the Coal Commission, which sets a high standard for phasing out coal and securing workers. And what we do is, as DGB, we are trying to promote the principles which were negotiated in this commission and share these principles with colleagues from all over the world. Because in all the countries of the world, this issue is important, and it is not only important to phase out the coal, it is important to find a good perspective and a decent perspective for the workers which are affected. And I think it's good if we are able to share these examples. We learned a lot from our colleagues, also from Canada, for example, what they have done in their Just Transition Commission. I don't want to talk too much about these examples now, but I think this is really important, and the Just Transition Center helps a lot in promoting these examples for the trade union movement worldwide.
Please.
If I may, on this positive note, add one concrete example that also was raised by Jochen. ILO, the NDC partnership, and GIZ, we worked together on the NDC navigator, and we were planning really to factor in a chapter on just transition and one chapter on green skills. What does this mean in practice? We are going to support, as GIZ, countries that would like, during their NDC process, to have a bigger deep dive into the labor market issues that are at stake. Opportunities, but also challenges. We are going to provide technical support, analysis, and especially the type of stakeholder discussion that you, Eric, just mentioned. Because it's not about that something is being done, but it has to be done with those that have that are impacted. They have to have a voice at the table. So this is a new avenue where we can deal with the human factor in this transition process, raise awareness at the country level, but especially come to action to figure out what is needed in 3 years' time, what kind of training, skilling, what kind of opportunities do we have in 10 years' time, which would mean we have to change curriculum in the educational system, prepare the people for the change that comes, and at the same time, of course, look for social security systems that have to be put in place in any case, because the type of challenges that we are facing require some kind of safety belt that it's much, much bigger. And I would agree with Eric, we have to put the right fines in place, and let me briefly touch taxation. This is the T word, it's not often been discussed. But quite frankly, let me close by saying, some of you may have read in the newspapers the big gains that some companies have made since the elections took place in the United States. Windfall profits. So this is part of the debate they are also having in Germany, quite frankly. Is it fair that each and every that has simply a decent job is paying taxes, they can't avoid taxes, and is it fair that we have some tax evasion systems still in place at the international level, and some bigger companies can escape and they don't bring in their fair share? So we are lacking funding. We have to mobilize those that are polluting. I think I'm very much agree with the polluters pay principle, but talk about taxation. Do we have a system in place that would allow us to deal with solidarity in a bolder way? I don't think so. And this is an issue that goes beyond this conference, but it's certainly an issue I hope that actually this is being picked up by the G20. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think that you deserve an applause. Thank you. Yeah, you are totally right. And we still have a bit of time, so I would like to ask the public if anyone will have a question. Yeah? Please introduce yourself. Amalia, here, behind Jan. Yeah.
Thanks very much. I'm Phil Bloomer from the Business and Human Rights Resource Centre. I wanted to just, first of all, say thank you, and it's inspiring to hear, particularly the focus on public trust and building public trust, which at the moment there's an enormous deficit, as you said, Madam Hoven. I wanted to also just say that, from our perspective, we will only get a just transition with public trust if we can demonstrate that it's going to deliver shared prosperity. It's going to deliver also real corporate due diligence in the identification of risks and the mitigation of those risks. And then, of course, that fair negotiation, both in terms of freedom of association, right to collective bargaining, but also the free, prior and informed consent that Indigenous people need, as this transition is going to be enormously important for them. So I just wanted to give one small example from the apparel industry, talking about that broader set of sectors that are affected. In Bangladesh, a lot of the workers are deeply concerned about what the just transition is going to mean for them, because, of course, the apparel brands, the fashion brands, are already saying to the suppliers in Bangladesh, well, you're going to have to be 50% reduction in carbon by 2035 if we're going to continue to buy from you. And of course, then they say, well, to the workers at the bottom of the supply chain, well, you're going to have to take all the risks and the costs, because nobody else is going to, none of the shareholders of the fashion brands are going to take it. So we see this passing of the risk and the cost down the supply chain. I think in those circumstances, it's critical that governments step forward with regulation and business and incentives that are transformed to change that. So my question is really, are there opportunities that you see now in terms of that transformation of the regulation and the business incentives, with obviously what's happened with the German Supply Chain Act, but also the European Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive? So it's in those areas, are there things that we can learn there and apply to try and drive that just transition through the supply chain in all these different sectors that are affected? Sorry, I went on.
No, thank you. Don't be sorry. Thanks. It's a great question that or a comment that is included in the supply chain. That is one of the biggest issues in this transition, because we take the risk of being, taking only the first layer of the problem, but not going through. So I don't know if anyone will like to comment on that, or. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, Ingrid, you want to? Yeah.
I think that we hope that actually the European Supply Chain Act is going to incentivize the respect of decent work and human rights in the value chains, because this was the origin of it, Bangladesh, I think so far we see some positive examples that with respect to, to labor rights, this may actually trigger this type of incentive. I think we have to and thank you for your comment, observe what does actually the other regulations that deal with scope 3, so the carbon footprint of companies and footprints, does in the value chain, what kind of risks then are being simply delegated, decentralized. I think this is certainly something that we have to look into, but I would still consider that the Value Chain Act can be a lever for actually improving labor rights and social protection systems all over the world. And I hope that this can be proved in a couple of years. Thank you.
Well, just to add that the German trade union movement will fight for these acts and will support government if they regulate.
Okay, thank you. Someone else? Yeah, Boitumelo. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. Morning, everyone. My name is Boitumelo Molete from the Congress of South African Trade Unions. I have two questions specifically. One to the GIZ. To ask what priorities they are focusing on in South Africa in terms of the projections and the synopsis they've made on the South African just transition. I've heard South Africa being mentioned quite a number of times, and it's going to be interesting to know what work is being done in South Africa, specifically by the GIZ, to promote a just transition that is inclusive of labor and that workers are at the center of. So what are those, and what priorities are focused on in South Africa in relation to the transition? Another one is very broadly across the panel. If the panel can give us a bit of some thinking in relation to the carbon border adjustments, how these are actually going to be assisting the Global South to transition, or if these are going to limit the Global South into transitioning in a way that is fair and at a pace that is going to allow for the transition to be implemented adequately.
So please, Ingrid, the first question was for you, so maybe start and...
Very briefly, I'm happy to put you in contact with the GIZ responsible department lead, dealing also with South Africa, but very briefly, we are supporting the Presidential Climate Commission in elaborating the next NDCs. We are working in the coal regions on the just transition, on the JET-P, especially through type of reskilling, upskilling, building up new business. This has all been done, especially with the gender and youth focus. And in this new cycle, NDC 3.0, the government of South Africa has asked us to strengthen the stakeholder dialogues in South Africa, especially to bring at a large extent on board the local communities, which so far haven't had such a strong voice in the whole process, in a nutshell. And we have a heavy, actually, program in the energy sector. CBAM, who wants to put on CBAM?
Well, Bartomele, I think that's a really important point you figured out, because from the German trade union perspective, it is necessary that CBAM doesn't make it impossible to have a fair trade with other countries. So CBAM is an instrument which might help some sectors in Europe in this period of transition, but if the outcome is that it is not possible to have a transition in other parts of the world, in other industries of the world, this instrument fails. So from our point of view, it is much more smart to support industries also in countries outside of Europe, to work together, that they are able to transform, for example, steel industries in other countries to get green steel there. And the CBAM is not the right mechanism for this, I think.
Thanks, Frederick. Eric, you want to mention?
Yes, I can know the question asked by my sister Molete is a very important point and is in a discussion, especially in our continent in Africa. Is very important, but what we can do as, for example, the ITUC is the campaign. We work at two levels. The first is the change of mindset, and in terms of the financial, especially we are working on the reforming the international financial architecture and to try to have more investment in Global South. And also we work on the subject of the debt, because as you know well, even today you say to finance the Global South for the climate action, but not through the debt. No, is the financial, is the investment. It can be the investment, but we need to finance. The last point is the fact, recently I was in the panel with the multilateral development banks. When we ask, no, we have not time to say it's necessary to invest on the climate action, but invested without any condition, especially for Global South, because the Global South is the first victims of this situation. We are not really, we are not who caused this problem is very important. So I think if you we continue to work on this way, maybe we can address the issue of the situation, especially for the global south. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. You are right. Who is creating this and who is suffering this? Okay, no. I'm sorry. No, we are now running out of time, so we have 2 questions. Super quick, please, super brief.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Dore, and I'm from Pakistan Trade Unions and representing ITUC here. But my question is, that we are talking about the inclusive, we're talking about the approach that can be unpacked at all layers, but how you can think of having an inclusive and unpacking the layers, because if I talk about Pakistan, 74% are in informal sector, and they are not part of any economy or any document there. So how you can think of bringing all the inclusivity in the agendas without bringing the women on the leadership positions or being part of the partners on the table? So how the policies will work out without the women, for those for whom the policies are majorly the most affecting? Because for me, even I was hearing the voices in different groups about the human rights and the gender, and nobody is willing to make them a part of the language part of that. So it is really affecting me in another way. So so maybe thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to? Anyone wants to take it? Okay, no, we will take the question. So Manu, please, the microphone, yeah. And exactly, and you wrap up. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Manu.
My name is Manuel Riera from UGT Trade Union in Spain. So you know that in Spain we have done a good just transition, more or less. And we have learned that anticipation is really important. So I'm a bit worried because I think we need to start talking about just transition in adaptation to climate change. So we need to open just transition to other sectors. And my question, and I'm worried about it, is do you think we have the knowledge about how many workers and how many sectors and where are going to be affected by an 1.5 increase of temperature, or even 2 or 2.5, because we need to start talking about worker migration. I think in the future is going to be a big issue for us. Thank you.
Okay, so now our panelists will give a last round of responses, and we will close the discussion here. So please.
Very briefly on the issue, how inclusive are those processes? Of course, when Gia said, when we are advising governments on climate issues, just transition processes, on NDCs, we always make a plea for really inclusive stakeholder dialogues, including women representation organizations. We face sometimes an uphill battle with governments, quite frankly. It's not always seen as appropriate, but we rest assured, we are a value-driven organization, and we make a plea for inclusiveness, gender, youth rights, human rights, and try to push governments to go into this direction, because normally when you have a more inclusive process, the climate implementation of action, is much more successful. And on adaptation, for instance, in South Africa, this is part of our new program, we are looking really into adaptation scenarios for 2035 and 2045. To get a better picture, what does drought mean for agriculture? What does this mean for water resilience? And then take it from there and figure out what kind of economic impact this has, what kind of impact this has for agricultural workers, and so on. And then to figure out, can we embark on some kind of economic diversification? Because we know that, for instance, if agriculture is very much water so irrigation dependent. Spain is facing the same issue, I know. You have to figure out, is this sustainable? Do we have other options? Can we save water? And can we save jobs and livelihoods? And this is exactly, so we are dealing, I mean, in adaptation, we are going to see a transition as in the mitigation field.
Thank you, Frederick. And
time is running out. Only one short thing. In Germany, we do have the first collective agreements which are dealing with the question of adaptation. For example, for rooftop workers who are not able to work when a high temperature is outside, so that they have some kind of social protection mechanism when they are not able to work due to the climate change. And I think this is something that workers and employers organizations have to recognize and make deals on that, how to secure workers' life.
yeah, Eric?
Yes, I think I can just add one thing is the fact we take in account every time to promote the decent job in our work on just transition, decent job and social protection. And also, especially in this COP, we need to continue to advocate for the new NCQG. Yes, because we need it to sustain or to finance the just transition. I think for me it's the last words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are a bit running out of time, but it has been a great panel. Thank you very much for all your insights from the different perspectives. So I would like to invite you to go out of this stage. Thank you very much, but please applaud them. Thank you. And I would like to... Thank you. Yeah, so now thank you. I would like to invite our two latest panelists, the two great sisters from the union movement. Please join us. They are MargitNorheim from ELO Norway and RosalinaAmorim from CUT Brazil. Welcome. So now what we would like is to hear from you more a bit of the regional approach. You are coming from Brazil, from Norway, so we would like to know what is happening. So the first question that I would like to make, and is a very short question, I just want a number as a response. So from 1 to 10, what will be the status of this transition in your country?
In my personal view, I would give it maybe around a 4 in Norway.
Wow. Okay, and Rosalina, for you, 1 to 10.
So I think so the same. 4.
So a 4? Okay, so we are not in a very good position, let's say. Okay, so now if we start going into the questions, Rosalina, could Brazil have been working for many years in this just transition, despite having a lot of issues with the Bolsonaro government? But now you have a friendly government, let's say labor union-friendly government. So are there still any challenges that CUT Brazil is facing, even with the friendly government now?
I'm sorry, I don't speak English very well, so I need to learn my answer.
It's perfect, please read it, no problem at all.
So, today I would classify, the first question,
yes.
Today I would classify the status of the just transition in Brazil in the beginning. Since Dilma's government, Brazil, has started implement solar and wind power station with a lot of investments. Unfortunately, these initiatives are made the private sector, which has generated several conflicts, like bad labor conditions and impacting on communities and their territories. Nowadays, despite some recent advances in public policies, starting with local governments, the process works participation, especially in sectors such as oil and mining, is still limited, and quality green jobs are still not sufficient and well defined for all 5 regions of the country. It is important to mention that Brazil is very large and has very specific regions, and it is necessary to take these particulars into account the building actions, I mean, at a just transition. In addition, investment and incentives in the clean technologies still face many challenges. We need much stronger conditions between the government, trade unions, and society to answer this transition takes in account the rights and needs of the workers and communities affected.
Thank you very much. And you, Margit, from your perspective in Norway, how have you managed, what have you done as a unions in order to gain the public into the just transition? What are you doing?
I'll start by talking a little bit about the specific challenges that we face. That is the background for the kind of challenges we also face in gaining support for ambitious climate policy. As you all know, Norway is an oil-producing country, and today we are incredibly dependent on oil and gas, structurally dependent and economically dependent on oil and gas production and export. In our oil and gas sector, we have approximately 200,000 jobs that are tied to the petroleum sector, around 40,000 on the petroleum platforms, and around 160,000 jobs in the supply chains of oil and gas. That makes up around 6 to 7% of our entire workforce. So it's an incredibly big part of our labor market. A lot of the industrial jobs in the oil and gas supply chains are also cornerstone businesses in small towns scattered across whole regions of Norway. So if we in this transition experience big shocks to the petroleum sector and the supply chains, we would see a type of what's it called, like deindustrialization that would lead to the type of Rust Belt areas that we've seen in the UK and the US in the past few years. So there's a lot of fear amongst our members, and especially in the regions that today depend heavily on oil and gas. And also, we found in a recent study with our shop stewards a lot of fear by the most vulnerable workers, so the least skilled workers in these sectors. Our welfare state is also incredibly dependent on the income from oil and gas export. Last year, oil and gas exports made up around 67% of our export income. That means that we can't just replace the jobs in oil and gas with a domestic focused jobs in the service industry, for example. We need to replace or transition the industries today to ensure we maintain an export income. Otherwise, all our import income or import costs will increase dramatically, which will affect cost of living across the country. So this is the challenge, and I think it creates a lot of fear and nervousness amongst our members in the communities that are affected. And I think a big part of how we need to work to address those fears is to really address the vulnerabilities. How do we make these communities, our economy and welfare state less vulnerable in this transition? And a big part of that is ensuring a just transition and working on specifically regional industrial policies in this transition.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, clearly in Norway you have a great challenge ahead, and it's totally normal that workers are scared and have a lot of fear about the future and about this transformation. So I will move again to Rosalina. I would like to ask you, what are the primary goals, because we know that COP30 next year, it will be a big one, because everyone is looking at that, how the COP30 looks like, and where the countries are really into accomplishing what they promised to do in terms of reducing emissions. So what are the primary goals that could Brazil has in terms of advancing this just transition for workers for the next COP?
The COP training. COP training will be ready next year in Belém do Pará from November. Will take place in a country with a significant change of COPs held in countries less open, the social democracy demonstration. This edition will also mark the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement and will bring new, more ambitious NDC. Belém is a big city with diversity, including industries, urban population, and middle of Amazon. Amazon is historically a place of a lot of conflicts and land, indigenous peoples, mineral, a lot of landships were assisted for defend peoples and indigenous rights, like Chico Mendes. He was globally now an environmentalist. So for good, the COP30 is an opportunity to put in discussion democracy, social justice, decent work, and respect for the environment, with the slogan "Environment and Work for Life." The idea is to mobilize and to include the labor agenda in the environmental agenda. The COP30 should be seen as an opportunity to raise class awareness.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, clearly you also have a big role next year to play, so we will be there supporting you in that role. Thank you. And now we are super late, so very briefly, Margit, what are you doing in order to support, or how are you involving the union worker force into all these just transition topics? Do you have any key that you can give us?
Hello? Yes, okay. Well, I think the trade union, on a national level, we use our structures and traditions of tripartite social dialogue really actively to develop industrial policies that address the vulnerabilities that I mentioned earlier. So together with employers and the government, we've identified several sectors that can replace the role that oil and gas plays today in our export-oriented sector with new industrial opportunities that are based on the competitive advantage and the skills that exist in oil and gas industries today. So that has been a really central way of how we've worked. We use these structures of collaboration and social dialogue quite actively also to identify skill gaps and to identify the level and the amount of renewable energy we need in order to be able to transition the industries we have today. I think one area where we struggle today is creating broad public support for those policies. There's a lack of trust, there's a lack of knowledge of why this is important, and so what we often see is that workers at the workplace level are not informed of why these policies are crucial to their workplace, and so they mobilize against the policies that are supposed to secure their workplace. And so I think trade unions have an important role in engaging with members at the workplace level, and we need to ensure social dialogue at the workplace level in order to support the broad support we need for these transitions and the policies that are created for that.
Yeah, thank you. And because this is not a fight where we have to fight employers against workers. This is something where we should go all straight into the same direction for everyone to win in this future that we are looking for. So thank you very much. Sorry for being a bit late and rushing. Thanks a lot. And I'm afraid that we have to close this session here. So I would like to thank you, everyone, all the audience that we have here in front. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us, and all the panelists. And also, of course, thank you to DGB for organizing this great event jointly with my colleagues in the Just Transition Center. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to the German Pavilion for helping us. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP29 in Baku. Germany. Climate solutions, fast and fair.